All right, we are at 2 after the hour. Let's get rolling. I don't think we have any new friends. Can I get somebody to volunteer to help us take notes today?
Happy to.
Yeah,
Oh.
I can try to help Francis, but I'm kind of multitasking during this call today, so I apologize if I can't. I know it's the worst.
Hurt.
I usually do try to give you my full attention, but life demands. So Francis will have to tag team.
Cool, thank you. Anyone have?
Let me know if my keyboard is too noisy though.
Oh, I hope you have a mechanical one. I love it.
I do, but yeah, anyhow. Let me know.
I was very sad. I used to have an IBM Selectronics keyboard that I hauled off the dying carcass of it wasn't a Z, it was an I. It's pulled off a System I. And I had all these strange little dongles to make it plug into USB, but it finally gave up the ghost about a year ago. That was the best keyboard.
Then it became a toy for the kids, at least, right?
Started
Started young.
It went to a landfill, I think. So if anyone is interested, you can modify your attendance to provide a link to your GitHub ID. If you do that, that allows me to contact my friends up at the foundation to make sure you have the correct permissions to be able to interact effectively with our GitHub repo. We've bumped into a couple of situations lately where folks have had some opportunities correctly being able to submit PRs and whatnot. So I just want to make sure I get permissions set. So if you link your GitHub ID up there, I'll be glad to make sure you're on the included list. And then ideally, I'm talking with the foundation folks, and ideally, if we get our CVD guide closer to completion, we can craft a short blog and then announce it at Open Source Europe, which will be happening in September 13th through the 16th. Well, we would like to announce it at OpenSSF Day. So provided we can get close to closure and get 1.0 uploaded into Git, I think we could.
When do we need to submit the draft of the blog post?
It would need to be done by probably September 7th. Again, and I'm doing something similar with the best practices group, where we have two concise guides we want to publish. So ideally, we could just kind of write 2 short blogs and then make that as part of the release.
And I do have that blog started, just so you know.
Thank you, Randall.
If you want, I could do this blog too. I could draft it after I'm done with that one.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, it doesn't need to be like super.
No, I got that. I kind of been reading the blogs that we have, and I think I'm getting the feel for it because I've been doing a few. So
cool. Yeah, thank you. That'd be really appreciated. And then I'll share that with Jennifer Bly. She's our marketing person from the foundation now, and then we'll kind of share it with ATTACK, and then share it with the world.
if you'd like, I can share with you the link on Slack, so you can see what I have so far and see what I.
Sure, that'd be cool. That would be cool. I will have some time tomorrow to take a peek. Today is kind of stuffed with nonsense. Work
No
things.
problem.
It's terrible when work gets in the way of all this delightful open source. All right, let us row our gaze towards the CVD guide for finders. I put a link in the chat, and there should be a link there in the agenda. And let me ask a question before we get too far. Francis, I saw that you submitted a PR. Was that against this document, or just in general we should have those two requested files as resources?
It's this document. We hadn't discussed to provide templates for researchers and security advisors.
Okay.
I sent them a few weeks ago to the mailing list, but I don't know if it even made it. So
I saw it this morning. I don't know if you jiggled the handle on it, updated them, but I saw it come through this morning. That's why I wanted to raise attention. So Francis has filed 2 issues for us. An issue for us to keep us on point around having a template for security advisory MD, which I think we have as part of the maintainer CVD guide, and then a vulnerability report MD file as a template to share. We would like to make sure that those are shared as part of this Finder guide.
I sent it July 28th to the mailing list.
You edited it, and that's why it should went to the top of my mailbox. All right, so let us take a look at the guide. Kayla had spent a bunch of time adding and making some edits that I went through and approved into the document. And I see she didn't show up today, Curses. I would love to have her summary. So where we stand, I see a lot. We got rid of the duplicative BDP and bug bounty language because that's already incorporated into the body of the document. We probably want to spend some time on disclosure options, which is on page 7. And then I'd like to talk about the appendices on page 11. So let's go to page 7, where we had started our table of disclosure options. Let's see if we can get this table hashed out and approved as a group. Then let's talk about our assorted things we need for the appendices. So is everybody taking a look at page 7? So we have listed, we have disclosure options of no disclosure, coordinated, limited, full, 0-day, and bug bounty. So first off, are we okay with having those categories as our disclosure options we want to provide more detail on? Is there anything we missed or want to remove? Vicki.
According to some of the comments, there are already definitions for some of these. And standards for some of these, and I don't know, looking at the document, whether those have already been incorporated or not. Does anyone know that?
No, they haven't.
Got it. Okay.
So that is still an outstanding AI we'll have to do. Francis.
I think it might also make sense to clarify that these are not exclusive, like exclusive of one another. Combinations of said disclosure options can definitely happen.
Agreed. We could put that into the prefacing paragraph there.
Yeah.
This is a non-exhaustive
being
list.
Being nitpicky. So, yeah.
So do we want to, how do we want to present this data? Do we like the table? Do we want to revert it to text or a bulleted list? I think the table adds a little clarity and precision. Do we like how do we like to deliver this?
I like the table.
Okay. See a couple votes for table, so we'll keep the table. So what I'll do right now is I will take away the bullets so that we don't get distracted. And then one typo. Way to go, Crow. So again, we're on page 7 of the disclosure guide for finders, looking at our table options. So we're okay with the options that are listed. Do we think of any additional methods that could be used, or are we happy with that list?
I mean, aside from the existing comments that we will need to deal with, I think the list looks good, but I don't spend quite as much of my time in this space. I know.
Good.
Couldn't I though? Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yes. Let's just put it that way. Yes. So I think that like you, Crystal, Jay, and Francis, people who spend a lot of time in this space, if you think this is a good list, I am very happy to go forward as is.
I think it makes sense to just leave it as is and preface it with this. These are just popular ones that we identified. These are by no way exhaustive.
I'll find a way to phrase that above.
Although I think I can tell on my camera too. I think it might not be such a bad thing to just say, while there might be others, these are the ones we recommend, because as authors we have authority. So it's good to just sort of take a stand on that, try and keep things relatively less complicated. Acknowledge that there might be other types, but these are the ones that we think make the most sense.
Agreed. Any objections? Opinionated in our document?
And I guess we do probably have to address some of the questions there. I know there's some, like there are a couple items in there that probably could be clarified. Like full disclosure, I don't consider that in line with the definition that's included in there.
Agreed. And I like Madison's suggestion of using CERT's definitions.
Yeah.
I think because they're a widely recognized body that model's been implemented on a national level across the globe. Is anyone interested in synchronizing the CERT definitions with our table for us?
I think I can do that if nobody else wants to do that.
I can help, but I don't know if I trust myself with doing the whole thing.
I think it's just copying and pasting from the CERT and then making sure you reference where they were pulled from.
Yeah. Provide the citation.
Yeah.
I agree.
So if you want to, Randall, it's.
I mean, I'll give it a shot. I have the time to give it a shot, so I give it a shot.
Excellent.
Awesome.
That would be amazing.
Okay. If you have any questions, I'm happy to review it. If you want to, do you want to tag me in there?
Sure, I will.
All right. Let's see up here. Up in the text, Francis notes that these aren't exclusive. So again, that ties into my little red and yellow statement. I'll figure out a way to word this, and this is a non-exhaustive list. These are the most commonly ones, are the ones in the reports. Vicky?
Well, there's a difference between exclusive and exhaustive. Like there can be overlap for these, I think is what Francis was saying. Wasn't it like you can have something that is disclosed in multiple different ways? Or was I misunderstanding what you meant by exclusive there?
You're correct.
Correct, I'm misunderstanding, or correct that there's overlap?
It is non-exhaustive and non-exclusive. These are
Okay.
two different statements. That's correct.
Got it.
I'll provide some flavor text, and I'll have the group kind of chew on that once I get that in there, and we can kind of see if I meet both these are what we are endorsing, and this is also not the only ways, and multiple methods could be used. So keep an eye out for that update soon. To Vicky's next comment, don't forget to write the disclosure for the public. Can we refine that sentence so it does provides more explanation for folks?
I can give some context on that. I think this may have been in a call that you weren't able to make. Does that sound familiar? I don't know, because time has no meaning for me anymore. So part of the process of writing your disclosure, you're writing it for different audiences. And if you write your disclosure with the intent that that disclosure will be made public, then you don't have to rewrite it. And so that was kind of the point of this comment, was letting people know that. Not sure that that belongs in this space though. Let me see. Did you scroll? Oh, okay. No, it does belong in this space, I think. No, I don't see that comment.
Yeah, we're talking about disclosure options, so I think it's appropriate to talk about the advisory. And if we're efficient and clear, and we don't have to introduce rework by manipulating it. And if
Are you still on the table?
I am still on the table. I'm right above the table.
Oh, that's why I'm not seeing it, because I was.
It's right before the purple. I'm looking at that comment. So if anyone's interested in providing some additional words there, we can to help reflect that intent. That would be groovy.
I'm happy to put a little blurb in there.
Thank you. I'll provide some phrasing to try to help talk about how there are many ways to do it. There isn't always one way, but here are recommendations. And then Randall will help us with some review from Crystal and everyone to integrate the CERT definitions for the disclosure types. And I would like to, if we go, like, if you look at full, wherever possible, if we could word the document in a consistent way, a little bit professional. We can certainly kind of speak off the hip, but going full TLP white, I think we could phrase that a little better. And so again, grabbing the definition will help us maintain a consistent voice and kind of a professional outlook here.
How about we finalize the first round, and then next week, if we're satisfied, we can move this straight up to the PR as well.
Like it.
Or more professional wording.
Like
happy
it.
to work that out as well next week.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we want to consider, Kayla notes, she wasn't sure if bug bounty is a disclosure option. So as a group. Oh, did she come? She show up? Yay!
Yay, I'm here. Hello.
Huzzah. So how do we want to, I'm not certain CERT has that as a part of their menu of disclosure options. So as a group, do we feel using a bug bounty is an option that could be leveraged for a finder and keep it in our table? We're on page 7 of the Finder Guide. Ricky.
I mean, it's certainly an option that people use, and I think it would be a form of malpractice for us to just ignore it's not there. We need to talk about it.
Would we want to put things like disclose IO or is it SOS.dev, those types of pathways?
Possibly, isn't there I thought there was a section in here on that. It might make sense to have another section below saying, and here are some of the possibilities here, but do your research and look for the one that's right for you. Sort of blah, blah, blah thing.
Yeah, I think a new section sounds like a good idea because it doesn't match up with the types, but it is a vehicle.
Yeah, that was kind of my thoughts. Like when I was going through that, I was thinking that bug bounty is you can have any form of disclosure of the vulnerability at the end once you've submitted it through either a VDP or a bug bounty or directly to whatever process whatever channel you took. But then the actual how you're disclosing this vulnerability at the end, that's why I was questioning, does bug bounty count as a disclosure option, or is it more of a vehicle for this coordinated vulnerability disclosure process? That's why I flagged that. So I think it could definitely go in another section calling out like these are the vehicles. And I think we do kind of mention it.
Are we cool kind of creating a vehicle section and moving things like bug bounty as a method to execute that? Getting some head nods, hooray.
Yeah.
I mean, I am aware that we want to get this out ASAP. And so this is moderately scope creep to some extent, but it's still, I think, valid. Maybe not scope creep, but it's adding and therefore adding a little complexity. But
and as with any
valuable
project, once we publish it, we still have the ability to revisit it and refine it and update it. It's not carved into stone.
it's carved into jello.
Yeah, it's carved into, and we probably need to make an action item for ourselves to circle back and review the maintainer guide since it's been about a year to make sure that we're still happy with what that's saying and kind of synchronize with this particular document. Maybe I'll make a note about that. All right, I would like to move down to page 11 for the appendices.
Sorry, before moving on, we didn't really get agreement. Do we want to have like a different section for non-specifically disclosure options or not? And who wants to volunteer to write that down?
Thank you, Francis. Yes, I think we agreed we want to make that vehicle section. And do we have a volunteer to help phrase that so we can get it in on our desired deadline?
I'm happy to take a stab at it. And I think maybe what could work is because we do talk about disclose IO and bug bounty and VDP in some other sections, we might even be able to include it in like some like table or other, like almost as part of the glossary or definition.
Like additional resources. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, I'll take a stab at it.
I'm happy to help there as well.
Thank you. And thank you for keeping us focused, Francis. I'm so excited we're so close. All right, so Kayla will take a look at that and either create a new section or figure out how to rephrase, kind of represent something maybe on a table, since we like the table. All right, before we move on to page 11, I see this whole section covered in yellow. CNA of last resort. Have we already covered this, and can we remove this piece? And then we'll get to when all else fails. So I believe we mentioned, here's details about the MITRE program. Here's how to contact CNAs. We have that above. So do we need this particular link? And we also specifically state on page 8, the CNA of last resort link. All right, yeah.
If you've confirmed it exists elsewhere, I say
Yeah.
let her
Remove.
Whack, whack. All right. The before we move on again, page 9, when all else fails, drop in a 0 day. Do we as a group recommend to drop a 0 day? Do we feel we should note that that is something that could happen? So would we want to potentially alter the wording here, or do we want to remove this as potentially an endorsement? Francis?
I think we should mention it. I think we should also be very clear that if this happens, it means that there was a failure of the whole process.
Yeah, like when I was going through the CERT guide to kind of compare definitions on things and looking at that, and the CERT guide is very clear that it's not going to dig into 0 day, definition of 0 day, anything like that. And also this was another kind of conflicting section when it comes to public full disclosure, just looking purely from a definition perspective. This section is defining public full disclosure as a 0 day, and that's not necessarily confirmed in other areas and other sources. So I think that could, phrasing it that way could cause confusion. So I support kind of acknowledging the presence and rewording.
Do I have anyone that's interested in helping us reword this section?
Are we still on the table or did we just pass it?
We're down on page 9 to drop in a 0 day when all else fails.
There's another section. Okay.
Yeah, we scrolled down a little
Sorry,
bit.
that is
Before I want to get to the appendix next, but I saw that and it was all flaggy, so I wanted to talk about it before I scrolled down too far.
do we need that section? I guess.
I think we agree. We want to acknowledge it is a thing, and we want to rephrase it to help coach that that's not a desired outcome and that it is a failure. The process broke down somehow.
Yeah.
Do we even move it that, like the section below is troubleshooting common challenges? Do we even move that below down to that section and talk about it? There.
I love that idea. I think that makes the most sense. Like where something like that would live, like troubleshooting. It is troubleshooting.
I'm happy to go all suggest mode and take a stab. I'm happy to, you can put my name there on that, and I'm sure I'll drag Crystal into it because that's what I do best.
Yeah.
So
We can,
yeah.
we could. Yeah, it's more fun when there's a couple people working on something.
Alrighty. Now I'm moving down to page 11 and the appendix. We'll start off the appendices. We'll start off with the glossary. We have a lot of really great terms here, but zero definitions. So do we want to schedule a time to find the authoritative definitions here and get them input into the document, or maybe link to existing work? What do we think a good approach would be to get this finalized?
This strikes to me like, is there, I think that a lot of these things, we might need to have alignment OpenSSF wide about the definitions for these things. I'm just wondering if there's, even if there's not existing work, is this maybe something that even has scope outside this document? I don't know, because I know there's been discussion in some of the Slack channels about, coming to alignment on some of the terminology, because some of the terminology is used slightly differently in different working groups. Just a thought here.
That's a good point, Jason. I think we have a lot of jargon and super specific things for this section, but I agree that many of these things are foundation wide. Let me go to Vicky first.
Yeah, it certainly is something that needs to be addressed across the entire OpenSSF and frankly the industry, to be honest. But we need to remember that we're going to be handing this document to Francis's kids are having a lot of fun. We essentially, people are going to get this document as a standalone thing. And while they can then later follow links, we have to give them the resources to be successful with this one document. So I would suggest going through these, perhaps splitting them off into like, you take 5, you take 5, you take 5, whatever it takes to make progress on that. But then once we get it done, definitely splitting this off into a separate project, perhaps under the education SIG or best practices working group. Sorry. But it does.
Rolling that meatball over here, I see.
You just get all the meatballs. But splitting it off into a separate project so we can then get others. Hell, as a matter of fact, if people are so keen to do that, let's get them to start writing them now. Throw them a file, put it in hash general, say, people, everyone into the pool. And you have 1 week to do it, go. Or you do that and you seed it with incorrect information, and then people are going to feel obligated to fix it. Sorry.
That is a method, yes. Definitely the grammarians and rules lawyers, so to speak, would definitely jump on that.
Exactly. See, it's ethical manipulation, trolling for fun and profit.
Hi, Francis, did you have anything to add or
Yeah,
comment?
just want to point out that we discussed exactly this 1 month ago on July 27th and had agreed to send this to the Education SIG for either a common language across our website that will be published or something. It's just that nobody did it.
Nobody did it. All right. How can Francis, if I could ask you to make a PR for me in my education working group, our education working group, if you could file a PR there, and I will ensure that it gets attention. Or file an issue, actually. Do an issue.
I'll file an issue.
Thank you. And I will make that happen. So the Education SIG will take this on for today and our deadline. Do we want to provide our own temporary definitions, or do we desire to wait for another group?
it depends on whether look at the timing for the education SIG and other groups. I'm not sure those two timelines are going to match up because the
It will not.
EduSig, yeah, exactly. The EduSig is doing great stuff, but it's on its own path at the moment. And this is something that they certainly can adopt in the future. But it's not to that point yet. But so unless we throw it to the wider community and say, here's what we're doing, we need your help. Please fill this out by this date, and give them a file in GitHub. That if we can do that, and we think that's going to get us like even 50% of the way there, if not 100, then I'd say go that way. Otherwise, it's on us.
What I could do is I could stage the file in the education SIG, and we can send a note out to the group lists and ask for quick contributions. And then again, with the issue long term, we can refine that and make it an official OpenSSF thing. So I'll take the AR to stage the file. I'll take the AR to copy and paste this into a file and provide a link. Any more comments, questions, concerns about the terminology right now?
I am happy to take an action item to kind of go through and look for all of these acronyms, the acronyms at least, and ensure that the first time we use them, we at least, maybe we don't provide like a full crazy, definition of it, but we at least spell out what it is so that we have that taken care of, at least within the document. Anytime we say BBP, we've at least said BBP, bug bounty, BBP, and we've called it like that. So I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Kayla. I appreciate that. That'll be very useful. Any additional thoughts about our dictionary? All right. Scrolling down further, page 12, our bibliography I see is growing, and I love that. So I would ask for, as anyone has any additional resources or links, please post them there. And let's go to the last little bit of templates and examples. Vicki.
Quick note on the bibliography. So I am slowly but surely working my way through those. I'm using Zotero to create the citations, because I'm not going to manually do all that. But it also means we're going to end up with a Zotero collection at the end of this. And that Zotero collection, we can add just a single link, and it will have snapshots of all of these articles and the like.
Okay. That sounds pretty cool.
It is pretty awesome. Yay, Zotero. And it's free software.
Yay, free software. Free software that helps people is even better. That's awesome.
Exactly. It's actually usable.
All right, let us turn our last few minutes together to templates and examples. So we have the PR that Francis filed. Let's see where we go here. So we have the, in the original open source vulnerability guide, the first link there for a disclosure template. We have our template here. So does that align with, or are we happy with that? Do we need to make any updates to that? And does that meet the desired request from issue 110 and 111? Does that address 111 for us? like Randall, I also give a thumbs up. But I'm biased because I helped put that together. All right. Cool. So I think 111 is addressed with that particular. Yeah, we're taking a look at your we're taking a look at the templates at the bottom of the document, and we've just looked at the disclosure template, which right now links to our template for a security advisor from the original disclosure guide. And the team so far agrees that that seems to meet the intention of issue 111. So I think that one we could close. And we always have the option to modify as we need it. All right, looking at the next one, the embargo template. We also had that as part of the original vulnerability guide. So take a minute or so to look through that and see does that address issue 112. Again, I'm biased, so I will reserve my opinion. Randall seems to enjoy it. Kayla's nodding her head. All right, so I think that at least with some lazy consensus, with everyone else being quiet, we think that the embargo template is achieved with the embargo notification link there. Personal vulnerability disclosure policy example. This is something I know Jonathan was very keen on. Is anyone aware? Do we have any? Does anyone have any exemplars of that? Or should I reach out to Jonathan to see if he can share something like a template with us? Or do we feel that we still see value in having this in here as part of our templates?
I agree with Vicky that I think the best person is Jonathan for this.
Okay. Hey, you know what I could do? He helped comment on this document. I bet I could add him. And I'll have to find him. Okay.
And also not to name drop folks when they're not here. I don't see Madison here today, but I know Madison had also talked about that she might have a good example of basically the idea of setting an expectation as a researcher when you are reporting a vulnerability. So not necessarily like an official, this is my formal policy, but these are the expectations that I have through this engagement. Because I think she had said like in her work, obviously there's a lot of engagement in it from a research perspective. So I think she had one that might possibly work. So I don't know if anyone could reach out to Madison and see if she had that. I just remember us talking about it a couple weeks ago as well.
Yeah,
and or Jonathan.
Well, and we talked about the word use of the word policy has a lot of implications and potential legal ramifications we wanted to avoid. Wow, I have double Francis's. That's kind of cool. It's like I'm in a bad VR helmet. They are so the actual expectations may be a way we would like to phrase this, that a researcher should come in and help have this expectation, and it should understand what the expectations and kind of rules of the project are as well. So does it remember her email? No. All right. I'll reach out to both Jonathan and Madison to see if we can get this one closed out. The next template we were looking for is a vulnerability report submission. So how yeah, we need an example. Yes, I see where this is going. So does anyone have an example? There was a suggestion that Francis might. If not, I think I have. That's PR1. That's PR112. Okay. This is PR112.
I have to admit, hearing PR 112 just kind of,
The good PR112,
okay, yeah.
not the one with a billion comments on it.
Yes, the zombie PR 112.
It's coming to life. It's going out the door soon.
That's what I keep hearing.
I saw Callaway was approving merges, so we were close.
Fingers crossed.
All right, so for PR112, let's jump over to that. Okay, so I might have one. So I will participate in this. If anyone else has an example of what a good vulnerability report might look like, please feel free to contribute that. But I will, I definitely have an example because I did a presentation at DerbyCon about this. So I have something I just grab off my slide. I will cram that in there. And so, Jason.
Yeah, just a thought. Do we maybe also want an example of a bad report? You know, here's an example of a good report. Here's an example of what not to do. Just thought.
I don't have a problem with that. Showcasing things that won't help you get your issue resolved.
Yeah. I find sometimes that's really effective.
So if you have suggestions around that, Jason, once I get the stub pushed up to the good PR 112, if you want to add comments to that, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, sure. I'll go watch. I'll go add a watch on it now.
Okay. Now the next item to a developer, a bug is a bug is a bug, and whether it has security implications or not. I didn't put this in here. So what was the intent of having a vulnerability and then a bug report? Is there a nuance I'm unfamiliar with that we need to have an example for?
I don't recall exactly, but I think it was something like these are security researchers, not necessarily open source developers, and so they might not be as familiar with what a good bug report looks like. Like, here's how you reproduce. Here's the
I mean,
platforms
I
it's on.
would. Oh, sorry. I should use the hands thing.
That's cool. Go ahead, Jason.
Sorry. So my personal opinion, I would stay out of this. In my opinion, what is and is not, what a specific project wants in a bug report is very specific to the given open source project. They have, every project will have their own idea of what they want in their bug report. I think this is kind of out of scope of OpenSSF myself. Like, unless we're really talking about security issues, like just coming from developer background working in projects, like this is very specific to a project, what they want in that report. That's my opinion.
What's the group's thoughts?
I kind of agree with Jason.
So perhaps we trim this out.
Could
Save
I
us hundreds of hours of work.
Yeah. Or we could just point to prior art. If you don't know how to write a bug report, GitHub or GitLab or whomever wrote documentation over there, go use theirs.
So we want to transform that maybe into a link and on how to submit a bug report, maybe highlight a couple good pieces of documentation we can find. Okay. Yeah, I agree. We don't want to be in the business of explaining, person explaining to projects that, this is how you should do accept bugs, but we probably could find some good examples through the Gits and whatnot. Maybe something like Kubes or somebody might have a good piece of documentation we can point to. All right, team. So we have a pile of action items. Is there anything else we want to talk about today before we wrap up and scurry about our work?
So I listed all the action items at the bottom of the meeting notes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
There's
Thank you.
5 of
So
us.
please, everybody review that. And if you got an action item, please try to follow up within the next week or so we can continue our momentum here. I appreciate, thank you, Francis. That's a hell of a lot better organization than I've ever done. Thank you. All right, team, thank you for participation. We are so close. I'm so happy to see our progress. So we'll talk to you in the next few weeks and keep up chattering, whether you're adding somebody to a document or through Slack or through our mailing list, however you want to engage the folks. And I will be following up on my AIs. So thank you.
Rob, can I grab you a couple seconds?
You have 5 minutes of my time
I
before I have to go get yelled at.